I think around my last year of high school, when I started just considering seriously the priesthood. I wasn't sure about it. I approached my parish priest, and that was my first approach to the vocation. His last name was Saint Nicholas. I always remember because he wasn't, a saint, but just to say Father Saint Nicholas was a really cool idea for me at that age. So we had wonderful conversations, and my parents were just having a difficult time in their marriage at that time. So I remember he just sending me to a vocation director at the diocese where I was from, and I was probably 16, 17 years old boy and trying to be honest with everything. So I went to talk to this priest, and I was completely honest, and I will be very open with my vocation story now. I met with him probably for 20 minutes or so, and he asked me about my family. When I explained to him that my parents were just thinking about, divorcing, and they were separated at that time, he looked at me in a way that he said these words: "I don't think you have a vocation," and he said it in a way: "Nothing good can come from a broken family." And so that was the end of our conversation, the end of my vocation in that way. So I remember leaving, and God had this beautiful relationship with me that I started just talking to him. And I felt in my heart that, I couldn't hold my parents responsible for my vocation. And God told me that. So I remember just very clearly saying, I would keep this in my heart and not going to tell them what happened. And I never said to my parents how the conversation was and anything, but I remember going back to my parish priest and telling him everything, and he said, don't let anyone to tell you what God is already saying in your heart. Just keep, trying. But I went to college, and then I had this beautiful experience during my college years, praying and going to the church, because I felt very lonely. I felt it was a state college, so I felt like all my classmates were in a different direction that I was. So my refuge was the church, going to adoration, and there were monks close to the the university campus that they were just seeing me and just approached me and talking to me about vocation. So I had my very first experience of my vocation with them, with monastic life. So I went to a come and see retreat with them, and I decided to stay. So that was my first call, and so I was in a religious life, in a monastic life for 6 years, and I advanced in my formation. I made my vows, but I had that idea of, discerning if God was calling me to be a priest. I wasn't sure, and according to the rules of that monastery, the person, the prior, is the one deciding, according to the number of monks in the monastery, how many could be priests. And they asked me to go to the seminary to have the formation for priesthood, and I was not sure about it, but obedient. So I went on, and it changed my life. And I was sent to Mexico for a new foundation, a new house, and I had my first experience with people, in ministry, working with them as a seminarian, and I thought, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I consider myself an introvert, so monastic life was the right thing for me, but but God showed me that I could be, a social person, doing ministry and helping others. So I just worked with my spiritual director, making sure I was discerning well what God was calling me to do. And I approached my order and I said, well, I'm thinking about the diocese and priesthood. I think that is another vocation that God is calling me now. So I left religious life without having a place to go. My idea was to go back to my home country, the same diocese that kind of, rejected me in the beginning. And but it was a Carmelite nun that I met, and she knew a few priests from Little Rock, and she told me, I was teaching classes with the nuns, and she said, we have been praying for you, and I want you to meet a priest from Little Rock, Arkansas, and before you make your decision, I want you just to meet this priest. So I met Father Salvador Marquez from our diocese, and then Monsignor Scott Friend, and everything changed. And I said, okay, let me just, try, and came here from, Argentina. And the first time I remember coming to Little Rock, I just fell in love with nature, with the church, with the reality of our diocese.
And what was your family's reaction when you told them that you were considering the priesthood?
My grandparents, my grandmother was thrilled and supportive. I had a lot of support from my siblings. My parents, it was a different journey for them. It took a few years especially for my mom, to embrace my vocation. And actually, I think that happened after my ordination when she saw me. I have a powerful story. After my ordination, I think probably year after, I went back to Argentina to visit my family, and I celebrated Mass in the parish. And I got there, and before Mass, a few minutes before Mass, that is something very common in Latin America, the sacristan was there and said, by the way, Father, since you are here, the pastor took off, and so he wanted you to do some baptisms after Mass. And so I'm glad it wasn't, so many, but there were few. So my family was just planning to have a celebration, a family reunion after Mass. And I was like, okay, I would do it, but I have to get back to my family. So my mother decided to stay with me after Mass, and the whole family left after Mass. So we were just, doing baptism. My mom was just looking at me, and I remember very clearly that after Mass, they were taking pictures. And since I lost my Argentinian accent, many people say, oh, let me just have a picture with Father. He's a missionary. Like, well, actually, I'm from here, but, so, and I remember my mom was just there, and they were the photographers. And I thought, okay, it would be a good idea to have a picture taken with my mom. So I called my mom. And this lady, without any bad intention, she pushed my mom away and saying, well, you are, you didn't have any baby baptized or anything, what you're doing here. The lady didn't know she was my mom. And then a mom was crying, and I just thought, okay, she felt, probably left out or discriminated. So I went down and said, Mom, it's okay. And she said, no, I'm not crying for that. And she said this to me, to my ears. She said, just crying because I realized just you don't belong to me anymore. You belong to them. You belong to the church. And that was the first time I realized, okay, my mother embraced my vocation for the first time. It was a beautiful moment with, between us. And since then, my parents were very strong support of my vocation. And my dad has a moment too that he showed me how important it was for for him to have a son that is a priest, and how proud he was. So the journey was different, but I said my mom passed away, but at the end of her life, she was very involved in the church, and so she had her conversion as well.
Do you think you becoming a priest had an impact on that?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And we have this beautiful tradition that, after you are anointed in your hands, they clean the manutergio, we call it. They clean your hands with this piece of fabric. And we reserve that fabric when your mom passed away. That is what we put in the coffin of a mother of a priest. So the tradition says that Jesus Christ will recognize this person in heaven as the mother of a priest who gave a son to the church. And always just, when I brought that little box with the fabric to my mom, I said, I don't know if I need to give this to you or to my sisters, because if you pass away, we need to know where that is. And I said, Mom, this is very important, right? And always she said, well, I hope I did my own marriage too, but she was very, very happy about my vocation and just giving my life to specifically to this diocese.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this clip, please be sure to head over to our channel for the full interview. Planet Cross exists to bring you stories like this. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe, share with a friend, and head over to our website, planetcross.com, for more life-changing stories.